Hi, we're Maddie and Nico, and we are turning this empty cargo van into this tiny home on wheels. We have no building experience, but we'll take you along each step as we transform our 2020 Ford Transit van. This week, we're installing our flooring. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be starting working on our subfloor for the van. So the first step is to put the Minicell foam and cut that into bits. It's kind of late in the day that we're getting started, so we're just gonna work on that today and take you through the process over the next few days.
You how to cut your Minicell strips. This is the way I've been doing it. Seems to be easy and pretty quick. For this example, I'm cutting a strip that's 1.5 inches by 48 inches. Take a ruler, line it up 1.5 inches, and just kind of mark it. Okay, so now I know where 1.5 inches is all the way down this strip. So what I do is take a long straight edge and then raise it on its edge, lined up with my marks. Now with the Minicell, you can kind of press into it and it'll make a little indent. And then I just take a pair of scissors and I cut down it. Yes.
Today we are going to be gluing our Minicell foam to the floor. That's the first step before we put XPS foam on top of that, and then plywood on top of that.
We already cut our strips for the corrugations, and I just labeled them all with numbers and wrote the numbers on the van floor so we know exactly where to put them when we glue them. But first, we need to clean. We need to clean the floor really good before we stick anything to it. So we're getting ready to glue these down, and how you glue them down. 3M90. This won't melt Minicell, but it will melt our main insulation, XPS. So we have another adhesive for that. But how this works is I'm gonna spray a little bit here onto the surface and then also on the foam. And then I guess you let this wait until it kind of dries out a little bit and you can touch it. And if it doesn't transfer to your finger, that means it's ready to glue down. We're just gonna wait. So it's about a minute or two. All right, we just finished gluing all the strips. Take a look. Ooh.
All right, now that we finished gluing down the Minicell, we are measuring the specs of the floor so that way we can cut our XPS foam board. Got my dad helping out. Yeah. We first used an X-Acto knife and a kitchen knife to cut the XPS board before realizing that using a jigsaw would be way easier. Got the first piece in.
Well, we discovered that we can fill the whole bottom of the van with 2 sheets of this insulation R5 board as opposed to the 3rd sheet. So we're just figuring out how to do it the most convenient way.
Now that we cut our foam board, we're going to use that as our template. We're going to put it right on top of our plywood, trace it out, and cut the plywood.
So for our plywood, we've decided to go with 1/2 inch Baltic birch. This is a cabinet grade plywood. We were a little bit on the fence about if we wanted to use this nice of plywood. It is a bit more expensive, but in the end we decided that it was a good option because we are less likely to run into any issues of it getting warped or bending. This one is a higher ply count. It's less likely to do that. We also decided to go with this one because it'll be a bit lighter. If you choose a different plywood, like exterior grade plywood, you'll probably want to go with 3/4 of an inch. And we decided to go with the Baltic birch because it'll be lighter. So make your own decisions. There's a lot of information you could find out there on the internet. We're only going to have to use 2 sheets of plywood though, so it's not going to be as expensive as if we had a extended van.
Also, I imagine.
Yep.
This is good. Okay, I'm going to say 8 inches because that's just how we do things.
We got 1 of our plywood boards in. We have, well, 2 more to go. Yeah, 2 more to go, except for this one might be made out of multiple boards. So, looking good.
Just finished cutting our subfloor. Check it out.
What are those called? Joints?
Alright, right now we're routing about 1/8 of an inch into our plywood subfloor so we can make a spline joint. So basically we're routing out here. We're going to put another piece in here and then connect the other piece of plywood. It's kind of like a puzzle. You'll see.
We are gluing our floor down today. So we are applying silicone right now to glue down our XPS foam. The main purpose of this isn't structural, it's just really to hold the foam in place because XPS foam will squeak if it rubs against the sides. The floor, the whole subfloor will really be held in place by all of our cabinets and everything we build on top of it, so we're not really worried about the floor going anywhere. I know some people screw into the floor, but we wanted to avoid causing any points where rust can form by drilling holes. Alright, now that we have the foam glued down, we're going to use the PL300 to glue down the plywood on top of the foam. Once again, it's just holding the plywood in place, making sure it doesn't rub up against the walls of the van and squeak. You'll want to make sure you use the right adhesive because some adhesives don't work with the foam or with the wood or vice versa, so make sure you do your research on that before, but we're using the PL300 for this.
Okay. Good. Okay, I have to go lower because we're already up. Yeah. Okay. So is it gotta go left or right or anything weird?
Does it need to come back this way?
Yeah, let's go this way.
Okay, so we just glued this together, and you can see the spline joint is here. There's a little piece of wood in between those, and we just clamp these two pieces together. So that's a spline joint. It should be nice and strong.
So we've applied all this weight on top of our subfloor, so that way both layers of glue adhere to the foam and the plywood. And then we need to probably get some more of the P300?
PL300.
PL300, so we could finish off our last bit of the floor.
We're almost done with the floor. Now there's just a bunch of heavy stuff sitting on it. One of the last steps is to fill the gap we left on the sides with this stuff, gaps and cracks. It'll fill the space and kind of adhere to it as well. So let's get to it.
First up, we are going to apply painter's tape around the edge so that way the spray foam doesn't stick to the walls.
Alright, we got the spray foam in. Now we have to wait about 8 hours for it to cure. And then we're going to cut it down nice and flat. And then I think we should be done.
You could just use a razor blade to cut the foam, but we found that a multi-tool was much easier if you have one. Say your line.
I'm saying it?
You're saying it. We've been building out this Ford Transit into our tiny home on wheels.
And today we are starting to finish our floor with these wood laminate planks.
So these planks are click and, what are they called? Click and something? These boards are Align and Click laminate wood boards. They're advertised as waterproof, so we are hoping that they are in fact that. We got them at Costco.
They're $40 a box. So this whole floor called for 3.5 boxes, so we bought 4. First step is vacuuming and cleaning.
So we are going to snap a chalk line to kind of give ourselves a reference point that's relatively straight, because the walls of our van aren't straight. As much as they should be, they're kind of dented. We've put these boards down so they're not level with each other. The best thing we could kind of do is make a line in the middle and then maybe a couple other lines on the sides to match that up. So this is a pretty tricky piece of the puzzle to figure out. But basically we have this tool, it's like a scribing tool. You put it flat against something and then you kind of go up like that, and these little pins move back and it makes the shape of your curve. So then what I do is I measure from the end of that to where our board is gonna end, and that is 11.5 inches. And then I'm gonna go over to our board and put this 11.5 inches up on our board. So I marked 11.5 inches from the base of this board. And then I'm gonna line this up with it. And then I just need to measure how much further in it is, because it goes a little bit to this side like that. But that's basically gonna be our curve right there. So I've traced it, and we should cut that there, and it should fit right up nicely against our wheel well.
So we just cut this piece. It was the back side of one of these cuts. So basically it has no tongue or groove because we cut it. And we thought
It needs the groove.
we thought we'd use it here, so we made the cut, and now we realized when we put it in, we don't have the tongue or groove.
It's the groove
Here. So we just wasted this whole piece.
When you get to the end of a line of boards, you will use the excess from your last board to start the next row. The end of your board should not be aligned with the ends of the neighboring boards. Having them staggered like this will make your floor stronger. Once you get past the first row and are in the groove of things, the process goes a lot quicker.
We're finally going to cut our step out. We just have been putting this off.
Once you get to the last row of flooring, you'll need to use a flooring pull bar that I've linked down below, or just a crowbar to pull your planks together. Welcome to the lesson learned section, where we will go over what we learned while we were building out our floor, as well as anything that we like or dislike about it now that we've lived on the road for a few months. So without further ado, here's our first tip.
We didn't go over this in the video, but I thought we'd add why we use Minicell Foam in the first place, and that's to just match the level of the corrugations on the van floor. It just creates a level surface for the XPS to go then on top of, so that's why we used Minicell.
If you buy your van new, or maybe even some used vans, they come with a factory floor insert. It's this plastic flooring over the metal. Ours did not come with that, but if you do have that, you can use that to trace the shape of your floor out on your XPS boards. That makes it super easy. If you don't have that, like we didn't, we just did some rough measurements around the edges of the van and kind of traced out that shape on the foam before fitting it in. And we decided the XPS wasn't as expensive as like plywood, so we didn't really worry about making mistakes too much. But honestly, we didn't really have any trouble just doing kind of rough measurements and going from there, because we were going to fill in the edges anyways with foam later.
Yeah, so we weren't trying to be perfect. It's kind of just a rough cut. We did leave about a 1/2 inch gap on both the XPS foam and the plywood. We use spray foam to fill that gap, and that spray foam adheres to not only the floor but also the walls, that it just kind of creates one solid piece.
Okay, this next tip is just to reiterate that you should be thinking about your cuts of your boards pretty thoroughly before you cut them. Otherwise you could end up wasting some like we did. If you do one row straight down, whatever excess you have at the end of that row, you use that cutoff piece to start your next row. And if you do that, then you should have a tongue and a groove for your next board to go into. That's kind of my tip there. So just don't cut off a tongue or a groove before you think about if you are gonna need that tongue or groove for the next board.
Earlier in the video, I mentioned that we bought 4 boxes of these boards. We ended up using about 3.5, so we had a couple extra boards that we used to finish off our stairs.
Sorry, I'm sorry, there's just a cat going in the garage. Alright, next tip. When you are doing the tongue and groove boards together, it will make more sense, or it'll work better for you if you tap in the long edge of the board first and then use your hammer against another piece of scrap to tap in the shorter edge of the board. It's a good idea to have the long edge in place and then the shorter edge second. It'll be easier for you if you do that.
And to add to that, I don't know if we ever talked about this in the video, but especially in the time lapse, I have a little piece. It was just a little excess cut off that we used. It had a tongue to it, so I could slide it in and then tap that piece.
You don't want to tap directly on your tongues or your grooves, so
or else you can dent them, and if you dent them, they don't fit together well. So use a little piece of scrap wood
or you
scrap
can
floor.
buy, I think when you buy flooring, you can also buy a tool that goes right into the tongue or the groove that you can hit that instead. You just don't want to be hammering directly on your planks.
The next tip we're going to talk about is applying silicone to the perimeter of the entire van floor. We did this in certain places, but we did not do it in all places, which I kind of wish we did.
We didn't show it either in the video.
We also didn't show it, but basically just put a bead of silicone around the perimeter. Doing this would maybe prevent water from getting down underneath the floor. We have a 7-gallon gray water tank underneath our sink, and we've lived in this van for about 4 months now, and it's overflowed maybe 3 times. And
but once a month we like to overflow our gray water tank just to add some excitement into our evenings. Yeah. Once we're cleaning up dishes.
So yeah, that silicone bead would maybe prevent water that does spill behind our cabinets. It would prevent it from actually getting to the floor. That being said, I don't think any water that we have spilled has gotten under our floor, just by the way the van was tilted on those days. But
basically, we've been lucky about it. You will have spills in a van though, and it's better to be safe than sorry with your floor, because replacing subfloor is a task that does not look fun. Okay, the last lesson learned, I guess. We just didn't show this in the video. We added trim pieces around all the exposed edges of our floor once we had all the planks in. We just got this metal L from Home Depot. We got some of that, cut that down, and we just screwed it around the edges, so that way we would hide all the exposed layers of flooring that we have there, kind of give it a finished up look and protect the edges of the floor. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you found it helpful, click that like button and subscribe to our channel. You can also turn on notifications by hitting the bell, and you'll be notified every time we come out with a video, which should be every Sunday. If not every Sunday, every other Sunday. We'll see you on Sunday.